Lisa Stroud.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vanessa. It's really nice to be here, partly because I was born in Birmingham and moved down when I was very young. I was 3 when we moved to Somerset, so although I'm not from Devon, and I know I'm considered an interloper, I did grow up on the Somerset levels, and Exeter was a sprawling metropolis to me. And since that time, I've moved out of the southwest, and I've been in London, I've been up in Cheshire, round and about, and it's lovely to have come back to have settled, and really nice to be talking at a conference that is rooted partly in how we can benefit from partnership in the region. Now, my background, as Vanessa's explained, is largely in conservation, but it's also within education. And it's very much been, for over the last 20 years, within the charitable field. And I've seen over those 20 years a progression in partnerships to a point, I have to say. Traditionally, the partnerships that have been held between charities and business have been in the form of the business seeing a charity that it would like to support, providing money for the work that they do already, and the charity carries on with business as usual. They get an increased capacity because they've got that money to carry on with their work, and the business has supported something that they believe in. And that does continue in some avenues, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but what I am saying, there is so much more that we can achieve from partnerships. And I think it was actually touched on by Marcia. Excuse me. It was touched on by Marcia earlier, that businesses are now looking, and quite rightly so, for much more involvement in partnerships. And just to give you a little example, in a previous organisation that I worked for, Global Action Plan, we had a partnership with Sky. And when we were talking, thank you very much, Vanessa, when we were talking initially about setting up the partnership, they said to us, previous charitable relations that we've had really haven't met our objectives. We haven't felt part of it. We haven't felt that it's met what we wanted to achieve. And what we did was talk with them for a long period of time setting up that partnership. Because if there's one thing that it's worth spending a lot of time on, it's those initial discussions to find out where each organisation is coming from. What does the business want to get out of it? What does the charity want to get out of it? And how can they assist each other? And drawing up a partnership document on the basis of that, to keep everyone sort of on the track of what you're trying to achieve. And if one partner starts to dominate at times, as can happen, it can bring people back to the focus. And you can have staff changes over time as well, and it just focuses everyone on what you're trying to achieve from that partnership. So I'd recommend, however a charitable and business partnership is working, whether it be small scale or large scale, that there is a partnership document and agreement in place. Now, I've been looking, as sort of in preparation for this talk today, on how charities and businesses approach partnerships on a wider level and what they feel they get out of it. And quite luckily, there is a survey that happens each year from an organisation called C&E, and it's the Partnership Barometer. And they look at relationships between businesses and NGOs, why they go into them, what they want to achieve, and also looking at their performance afterwards. And what's come out of that is, in 2013, is that the top 3 priorities for business is primarily reputation and credibility, which is, that's historically been the case, that's not a surprise. The second thing is innovation, and by that they're looking at new approaches to old problems and fresh ideas to cope with new challenges. And they also want to increase their knowledge base. From the charitable side, the primary reason, no sort of drum roll for this, but it's for funding, to bring funding in so as they can carry on with their mission. The second thing that they're interested in is increasing their contacts with people. And thirdly, they're also looking at reputation and credibility. So there is some synergy between the two when you first look at it. But I think there's actually a much wider synergy there as well. So if you think about business, obviously their main consideration is that profit line. When you're looking at the charitable objectives, they're concerned with that greater good aspect. But each wants to increase their capacity to provide for their customers or stakeholders. And if you look at the charitable side with the financial input that they want primarily, that is to increase their capacity to carry out their work. But where I think we're missing a trick in moving things on is, and it's already been spoken about, is it doesn't have to be finance that increases capacity. It can be that true partnership work between the two organisations. So the charity wanting to have that funding to increase their capacity, wanting to increase their contacts and their reputation, that's all to do with enabling them to do their job better. And everything on the business side is exactly the same, enabling them to do their job better. So how do you do that to the greatest extent? Well, one of the projects that I've been involved with, and it links to the Sky project, so I'm using this as an example because I can put the two together. Again, it was with Global Action Plan, and it was a project called Climate Squad. Climate Squad. And basically, Global Action Plan itself deals with businesses, schools and community groups, and is looking to reduce carbon emissions in the main. And they have departments dealing with each of those groups. And the community section and the schools section felt that there was a missing group of stakeholders that we weren't addressing properly, which was young people. They didn't fall into either camp, but they were potentially a group that we could really access to work with. So we wanted to set up a youth volunteering department. And we had a first project that was potentially ready to roll, and we had interest for partnership from Bank of America, who wanted to increase their credibility and reputation. We also had interest from V Inspired, who's a youth volunteering organisation, and they match young people to volunteering opportunities. And they wanted to get many more people involved in volunteering nationally that were young people. And from Global Action Plan's point of view, we wanted to engage that stakeholder group, and we wanted to reduce those carbon emissions. So we joined up as a project. And initially, we set out some goals. We had our targets of how many people we would reach. There would be 3,000 volunteers across the country, 300 of whom we would train up as leaders. We wanted to increase the skills amongst those people, and we wanted to have X number of households, X number of schools, and X number of businesses involved in the project. So those were our sort of what we were going to measure everything against. And actually, when you look at the survey that's carried out annually, one of the things that both businesses and charities think they're very good at is setting those targets. And in that initial stage, when you're putting it all together, everybody rates themselves either good or excellent at that aspect. But when you look further at people's rating on their performance, and you look at stakeholder engagement and customer engagement, the charities rate themselves, well, the projects, the partnership projects, as being good at both of those. About 50% of them rate them good, and then the others tip into the average zone. Businesses, you're looking at about 35% think that that's good, and then you tip into the average and below average poor. When you're looking at communicating internally on what you've achieved through the partnership projects and communicating externally, both of the groups consider themselves to be average. And then when you look at evaluating what's come from it, again, it's average. Now, average is a result. We've gone into the partnership and we've had a result from it. It's an average result. We've achieved things, but it's not sort of being out there achieving the maximum. And I do wonder, and this is my personal opinion, and you can argue with me at questions, but I do wonder whether that historic focus on funding has meant that we're basically looking at providing money for people to do what they're doing. We're not expecting bigger things from it. So the expectation is much lower. And also, when we're looking at communication and engagement, it's largely through promoting what we've done. We have done this project. Look, employees, this is what we've done as a company. Look, stakeholders, this is what we've done. So you're informing people rather than engaging them. Now, one of the things we did with the Climate Squad project was we were looking to involve young people right from its inception. So it was going to be a project that we facilitated and supported as a partnership, but young people ran. And we set up a steering group initially, and it was anticipated that the steering group would consist of maybe 6 to 10 young people. They would meet once a quarter, and a member of Bank of America, a member of V Inspired, and a member of Global Action Plan would be there as well. When we actually rolled it out and we set up a social networking platform for V Inspired that they were also going to use for other projects that they were doing, and we sort of went out and engaged with organisations that involved young people and explained what the project was, the response was phenomenal. We had an awful lot of young people signing up to do voluntary work in their areas on small-scale projects to reduce carbon, or they might have been interested in photography, so they would take photographs of events taking place to help promote them. So we had a much bigger response than we anticipated, and a lot of those young people wanted to be involved with the steering committee. Rather than say, no, we're keeping it within these parameters, we decided that they would meet once a month. Well, they decided that in collaboration with us. They would meet once a month, and that in order to accommodate more young people on that, we would form subcommittees. So where you had young people that might be interested in a career in journalism or interested in a career in measurement and evaluation, which is really valuable, and we did have people that were interested in that, they formed subcommittees. And we were able to make links with our previous partnerships, and that's why I'm using these two examples. So Sky came into play again. So young people that were involved with the media side of things and interested in communications, we were able to link them with Sky. They discussed what they wanted to get out of some work experience with them, and they went into Sky for a day to experience what was going on there. So they got that kind of career side of things as well. So the steering committee was running really well. And we were also looking, out of those 3,000 national volunteers, to create 300 leaders for their communities. And those young people would basically undergo 2 days' worth of training, and they would learn how to audit energy or waste, how to help and support change within an organisation, whether it be a school, a community group, households or a business, and how to monitor progress on that and how to promote the progress that had been made on the project. So they were learning how to facilitate a process, not how to go in and tell people what to do. So that was part of what they were learning to do. The other thing was how to lead. So they were going to go back to their local area, decide what they wanted to do. Maybe they had a firm in the area that they wanted to link with, so they would approach them. And also looking at the other volunteers that had joined the network that were local to them that they could bring in as part of their project. So they were also leading a group of volunteers. And one of the things we started to bring into play, which hadn't been anticipated to start off with, was employee engagement. We wanted to make it as effective as possible for bringing in work skills and employability for these young people. So we approached Bank of America and asked whether we could access any employee volunteer schemes that they had. Now, at the time, they were merging with Merrill Lynch, and on a national basis, it was quite tricky for them to do that. But they said that they had what had been MBNA in Chester, and there was an established group of employee volunteers there. Some had an interest in the environment and young people, so we were able to tap into them. So the first training event we ran up in Chester just to get it started. And each young person involved with the training program was linked with a mentor from Bank of America. And what that provided them with was support outside of Global Action Plan. So they had someone on the end of an email or on the end of the phone, not to bug all the time, but the employee could say, I will be available if you need me between these times. And they could give them support on how to put together a letter if they were approaching a school, or how to improve their communication skills if they were looking to negotiate going into a business. But those softer sides of things that are harder to measure, but really enable the young people to go out and do that voluntary work to the best of their ability. And actually, over the course of the project, we didn't end up with 300 young leaders. We ended up with 700. There was such a thirst for it, and when we were able to bring partnerships together to enable us to increase the capacity. So we joined up with the NUS, for example, to get to more people. But we were very, very aware that there was potential with a project like this to tip towards those young people who were the high flyers potentially and also were graduates. And we wanted to also give opportunity to those who were not in education, employment or training, who were not graduates. And so we looked at how the training would work for them, and we spoke with youth leaders and we spoke with young people themselves. And we established that there would be a tiered system. So we would work with youth leaders and train the youth leaders on the process so that they could assist a group of young people because they had confidence in those groupings, carry out something within a school, community or business, and then from then on they could take a step up individually and take on a project themselves. And there were so many projects that came out of this process that young people came up with individually, and they spread across the country. So you might have one come up in one locality that not necessarily a leader had come up with, somebody wanting to volunteer. They had what was called Pump It Up, which was to do with tyre pressures on cars and how many carbon emissions a year are wasted by people not having the right tyre pressures. So then they were accessing events across the country where people were parking and they were talking to the individuals, talking about the carbon savings they could make and offering to pump up their tyres for them to make those carbon savings. And that was really simple, but they led it. And the whole point of it was for them to lead it. But one of the key things that can be achieved out of something like this isn't necessarily those carbon savings. It's bringing up those employability skills, the confidence, the ability in young people to cascade something and to feel that they can achieve. When it comes to the environmental aspect of it, and I think it was mentioned again earlier, with the sports side of it, it's a conduit. It's not the main focus. It enables people to do something. And when you bring that down to a regional level, I think you can actually achieve even more. At South Devon College, where I'm a governor, they have a skills summit once a year, and we invite employers and we look at what are the key skills they need in their workforce and what's missing at the moment. What do we need to bring in to vocational qualifications, and what do we need to give experience within academic qualifications to young people? And I feel that a lot of the things that they come up with, so communication skills, the confidence, the timekeeping, the good manners, all of those things are very well achieved through projects that the young people run themselves. And working alongside education and employers, it has a valuable place, because when you're looking at education and vocational qualifications, you're looking at a system that is structured and young people or adults have to fit into. Yes, it might be meeting the wider needs, but they fit into a system that's structured for them. Whereas if you're looking at ownership of it, when you look at the innovation side, which is what the businesses have said they want to achieve, it's incredible. If you have a business and a charity sitting down together and thinking about ideas of how they can work together, you'll have a certain amount of innovation. If you involve more of the employees of each, you'll get even more. But if you cascade that out, what comes from that is incredible. And what you also get from it is amazing motivation, and it's so inspiring how you can feed off the people that are involved in projects that they are owning and pushing forward. And if you could bottle that, that would be a big business thing to sell. So I'm an advocate completely of letting go of that fear and allowing others to own a project working with you. And I think coming back to what businesses and charities want to achieve, it also addresses those multifold. So they're looking at, as we said, addressing customer engagement and stakeholder engagement. Well, what better way than to involve your customers and involve your stakeholders in the process? So they're actually doing it. They're part and parcel of it. And then when you come to communicate it internally or externally, you're not doing it through normal systems. Those people are embedded across the organisation, and they're embedded within the community. So they are part and parcel of that communication, and they're enthusiastic about it because they're leading it. Where I have the concerns is around the evaluation. And that's where it's tapping in to other opportunities that come from embracing the wider grouping. So Exeter University was mentioned. There are opportunities there for people involved in a project to do the evaluation alongside you, to increase your capacity to do that. And it's so important because the only way of improving partnerships or improving a project over the longer term is to evaluate it and work out how we can actually make more of it. And it might be that the businesses and charities feel that their engagement of stakeholders and customers and their communication isn't particularly very good because they haven't evaluated it, so they don't know how to improve it. So on a local level, you can move it forward even further. So you know what skills specifically are in shortage in your local region. They can be embedded within a project. You know what businesses and what what ratio of certain businesses you have. So here we've got, mainly tourism, you've got business and finance. We've got what we have in the Southwest, and you can work a project around that, and it will be different to another region. And also, you wouldn't end up with a project where you have mentors, which are very valuable, but in another part of the country, assisting people that are involved in the project, they will be members of the community as well. So when it comes to social cohesion, that's something that just feeds from a project like this. I want to end with 3 quotes, because I want to sort of pass it over, in effect, to employees that have been involved in these projects. And they are ones that have mentored young people, they are ones that have cascaded it into communities. And if you just show the sort of last 3 slides one at a time, I'll read through them in case anyone can't see them properly. But these are what individual employees have said about involvement in partnerships like this. The first one is, the most rewarding aspect was to watch the young people grow in confidence over the 2 days and work really hard to achieve their BTEC qualification, which incidentally we developed with Edexcel as part of it. I would not hesitate to volunteer again, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. The next one is, volunteering for this was one of the best things I've done so far. And finally, overall, this experience was something that I will never forget. One of my most challenging things to date, but one that I found rewarding, the one that I hope I can repeat or something similar in the future to benefit and develop myself as well as making a difference. And that's one of the main keys. If you're going to establish the talent that you have available within your organisation, allowing people to do something like this can show skills that you previously didn't know were there, and it can enable people to really progress with mentoring and coaching other individuals, which are all really good qualities to have within a business. So I think it's extremely beneficial to both the business and the charity. You can do it on any different levels, you can do it to the minimum, but I think an awful lot more can be achieved than we actually anticipate at the outset. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I totally passionately share that view. And I always get excited when I'm around people who are volunteering and people who are doing that for the first time, and to recognise, and to be very aware that this is going to be transformational, literally transformational in their career, to have that opportunity, and to then watch that blossoming is exceptional. So, ladies and gentlemen, do we have some questions for Lisa? Please. Yes, please, Sarah. Thank you.
Hi, Lisa, that was fascinating. I'd just like to ask a question. You know all the gorillas we saw around Exeter, which was fantastic. I'd love to know a bit more about that, because I thought that was really powerful.
I'm going to be giving a talk on this in a few days' time, so it's a warm-up. Okay, basically, we've got our 90th year this year at the zoo. We wanted to do something big to promote that, and we wanted to give back something to the community on that as well, rather than having it just a zoo event. It had been run up in Bristol, so there was, somebody had run it before, and we could talk to them about, any problems they'd had and help to iron those out when we were doing it. And it was involving businesses from the local community in sponsoring those gorillas, artists from the local community and beyond in putting forward designs for those gorillas, and encouraging local people as well as tourists to go out and see more of Exeter and see more of Tor Bay. It's particularly the case, I think, with local individuals. You tend to not go and look around your own area. You go and explore when you go on holiday. But it was enabling people to go out and see areas that they hadn't seen before. Those gorillas are back at the zoo this weekend, so if you haven't seen them, come to the zoo this weekend. They're down the drive and they look absolutely amazing. And they will be auctioned off this month, and then money will go towards conservation projects for the gorillas. But one of the nice things that I found through that project is we went to an awards ceremony, I think it was last week now, and it was for South Devon and the Tor Bay area, and one of the awards was for the best event of the year. And the Gorilla Project won, but the reaction across the whole room was just it was amazing. Everybody was applauding because most of them had actually been involved. So it was a real community project that people felt that they had ownership of.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. We were very proud to be involved with that as well. So, any more questions? Yes, please. Thank you.
Hi, as a specialist in sales processes, what I'm really particularly interested in is what direct impact has your involvement in the community had on growth and profits at the zoo?
At the zoo, I wouldn't be able to speak on that myself. I don't know whether, sorry to put you on the spot. Jenny's in our marketing department and might have a bit more information about that. So Jenny would be the person to speak to. But just from a personal level, within education, because I manage the education department, we are looking at partnerships with local organisations that help expand what we're doing. And we recently reviewed our strategy and we came up with 3 strategic objectives, and education and engagement is one of them. And we have a partnership with Alcoa Haumet, based in their extra arm. And they are supporting us in engaging young people and the wider zoo visitors on sustainable behaviours and also evaluating the differences that they make. So actually, our work at the zoo and our community work enables us to carry out our mission on a wider basis. But I think Jenny, if you have a chat with Jenny in the break, she might be able to give a bit more information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terrific. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to let Lisa go as well now, but that's been very inspiring. Thank you very much, Lisa Stroud. Thank you. Thank you.